Fallout New Vegas has a total of 8 companions that the player can choose to have accompany them throughout their adventures. However, the game limits you by only allowing the player to have one humanoid companion and one non-humanoid companion at a given time. That said, what if we could break this rule and have all of the human companions at a single time? Well, that's what I plan to find out, as today we figure out, can you beat Fallout New Vegas as a group? Okay, so what do I mean by this? Some of you might not be aware of this, but Fallout New Vegas has a few glitches in it. I know, it was a shock to me as well. Well, one of the more well-known glitches involves Veronica, in which after triggering certain sequences by talking to her in certain locations, you can select a specific set of dialogue choices that will dismiss her as a companion, except not really, and instead will allow you to go and recruit a new companion and then return to Veronica, engage in the same set of dialogue again, and then be able to take her with you as well. If you do this when you meet each companion, you can then have all of them following you at once. With the brief explanation out of the way, the only rules are that I must have all of the human companions and one of the non-human companions. Sadly, there's no way to have both Rex and Edie without mods, so for this run, I'll be going with Edie. Sorry Rex, you'll get your time to shine in a future video, don't worry. And the other rule is that I'm not allowed to kill anything myself. All of the fighting must be handled by my companions. And now, with all that out of the way, let's begin. When building my character, I focus my special stats around endurance, charisma, intelligence, and luck. Charisma is meant to help with companions' nerve, but we shall see. Since attacking in any form is pretty much off the table, I assign medicine, speech, and survival as my tag skills. Medicine for healing obviously, and speech because I know that some companions have speech check requirements, so that will come in handy. As for survival, I'm honestly not sure. I think I forgot to actually change it. Barter would have been the smarter option here obviously. I also took Wild Wasteland and Good Natured as my traits for some added bonuses. With the intro out of the way, I use my medicine and speech skills to really squeeze Doc Mitchell for as many healing supplies as I can before making my journey to the 188 trading post via Black Mountain. On the way there, I stopped off in Sloan to heal Snuffle's leg as I'm not a complete monster, despite what some of these runs would have you believe. I also marked Hidden Valley on the map for later use, and even made a slight detour before Black Mountain so I could find some of the Lost Brotherhood members. I thought since Veronica was going to be the only companion I would have for a while, it would make sense to get her as geared up as I possibly could. On my way to Black Mountain, I was greeted by the rare incognito Neil, who was trying his best to remain hidden behind this rather small tree. I humour him and pretend I can't see him, and then begin making my way to the Indiana Jones Easter egg, as it is my preferred way now to make it safely past the death clause. Plus, the free NCR uniform is always good to have. The mutants here were surprisingly more aggressive than usual. If it wasn't for me spamming stim packs, I would not have survived for more than a few seconds. After I made my way through and the mutants decided I wasn't worth the time, I quickly made my way to the 188 trading post and picked up everyone's favourite punching enthusiast. Now that we actually have Veronica, it's time for me to start fulfilling the prerequisites for our side quest to activate, so we can properly start the run and begin recruiting more followers. Now, there are 3 areas that will always trigger her dialogue, and they are Camp McCarran, the entrance to Vault 3, and finally Nelson or Cottonwood Cove. However, you can also get it to trigger if you visit the Followers of the Apocalypse and talk to Julie Farkas, as well as talking to the Van Graffs at the Silver Rush. With that in mind, I begin making my way for Camp McCarran, because if I could get one trigger there, I could then take the monorail to Vegas and from there walk on down to Freeside and get the last 2 to pop with no trouble. Now, while all that sounds easy enough, you're forgetting that this is Fallout New Vegas, and therefore the game glitched and she refused to bring it up after I was at Camp McCarran. I even talked to Thomas Hildern, as some people have said that will always trigger it, but not for me, unfortunately. No matter, seeing how this whole playthrough is basically hinging on a glitch, it would make sense that the game would decide to bug out from time to time. Since things weren't working here, I hopped on the monorail and went straight to the tops to look at Benny. Now while that may sound odd, I assure you it is strictly for experience purposes and nothing more. I put my points from the level ups into a mix of repair, speech, and medicine, as I figured they'd be the most useful, as I'd need repair to get Edie anyway. Regardless, I made my way to the Van Graffs, and as soon as I stepped foot inside, Veronica's dialogue popped, and so I was finally able to get things moving. 1 down, 2 to go. This was short-lived, however, as once again nothing happened when visiting the Followers or when she slaughtered her way through all the fiends outside Vault 3, which is supposed to be a guaranteed trigger, may I remind you. By this point, I was almost ready to scrap the video, because while I could just go and download a mod, I felt that would eliminate half the fun. However, just as I was about to give up hope, I found an old post on GameFAQs of all things from 10 years ago, where someone mentioned that he was able to get Veronica's dialogue to trigger by simply sitting down on a chair. As bizarre as that sounds, I was out of options, and so I thought it couldn't hurt to try. And seeing how you're all currently watching this video, then you have probably deducted that this indeed did work. Never change, Fallout New Vegas. Anyway, with that done, I only need to trigger 1 more dialogue and could begin setting up the glitch. So, I decided I would try my luck at getting it to pop at Cottonwood Cove, as I would be heading there later anyway. On the way, Veronica quickly dispatched some Viper gunslingers with ease, but then almost immediately after, bit off more than she could chew when she attempted to try and take on some Cazadors. Now, to her credit, she was able to take down 2 of them with relative ease. But once she did, you could say we shook the hive, and a whole swarm began to, well, swarm us. I never did see her get knocked out. mainly because I had planned to use her as bait while I made a quick getaway, which worked to varying degrees of success if I'm honest. During my escape from Satan's messengers, I ended up stumbling into Nelson of all places, which, if you remember from earlier, is also somewhere where Veronica can trigger her last set of dialogue. And, sure enough, as soon as I entered a random house, she began talking to me. Now, to set this up, when she asks you here, you just respond with "not now" and go to find your next companion, which is exactly what I did. I had my eyes set on Arcade Ganondorf, but that was a waste of time because I lacked the means to persuade him. Really should have taken that confirmed bachelor perk earlier. No matter though, it was only a temporary setback as I travelled back to Nelson and walked 2 minutes up the road to recruit everyone's favourite depressed, edgy sniper, Craig Boone. Boone came with his own set of problems when he refused to do his job and blow off Crawford's head despite me giving him the pretty clear-cut signal.
I'd really like my beret back, please.
You don't get your beret back until you kill Jeannie May.
I've had it up to here with you, rebels!
He did eventually get his act together and I was finally ready to start getting the team together. So, all you have to do to set this up is ask Veronica what she wanted to talk about earlier. When you do, you will then tell her to go alone, which will then cause her to leave as a companion, and then from there you take your next companion. In my case, Boone. Then, you talk to Veronica, do the same dialogue again, which will once again tell you that she's left your service, even though she wasn't following you. Then from there, you can ask her to come with you, and she will. Okay, so that all sounds a bit strange, but my basic understanding of this is each time you engage in that set of dialogue with her, the game must remove the check for having a companion. And seeing how you can have this conversation with her when she isn't following you, it then tricks the game into thinking you've removed your current companion and therefore you have an open space for a new one. Or at least that's how I think it works anyway. Well, with everything now working how it shouldn't, as this is a glitch remember, the three of us began making our way to the Mojave Outpost to get Cass. At this point, Ganon's still off limits, Lily was too far away, and as for Raoul, I wanted as much firepower as I possibly could before having to deal with the mutants at Black Mountain, so the only other logical option was Cass. Now, when I say I wanted more firepower, don't take that as me saying that Veronica and Boone weren't doing well. On the contrary, with his skill at long range and her ferociousness up close, they made quite an effective team. Case in point, look at these rad scorpions. Poor things never stood a chance. Because nothing is straightforward, however, we can't get Cass yet. Firstly, I need to deliver a package to Camp McCarran for the Crimson Caravan Company before I'm given the quest to get her to sell her caravan. However, before that, I was able to level up due to all the murder my friends were committing and got the confirmed bachelor perk, so we were able to invite Arcade into our merry band of misfits. With that out of the way, all we had to do was exterminate a few ants for the NCR to allow Cass the ability to leave the outpost. I'll be honest, I've never really had Arcade as a companion for long outside of doing his side quests and other playthroughs, but I've got to say, he surprised me by how much damage he was doing. His DPS was insane, no joke, probably the best addition to the team so far. With the ants now mostly reduced to green puddles, it was time to recruit Cass and become one step closer to our full power. With our numbers now up to 4, 5 if you count myself, but I'm more of the team healer, it was now time to begin the assault of Black Mountain and begin Operation Zombie Rescue. I also enlisted the help of Neil now that he wasn't trying to become one with the local plant life, but turns out he's more of a distraction and won't actually fight with you, which is a shame. I was briefly embarrassed at my squad's ability to find a nearby Nightkin who was standing in plain sight despite being invisible. That said, however, once they did spot him, he did not last very long at all. I'm starting to think going to get Cass and Arcade before doing this may have been a tad overkill. No, you know what, it was 100% overkill. I figured this out when a random Deathclaw appeared of all things in the mountain, and they all just formed a firing squad while Veronica kept it at bay and killed the poor thing in less than 5 seconds. While slaughtering our way through the locals, I leveled up and got my repair skill high enough that I was able to fix up Edie, so I fast travelled back to Prim to pick him up before continuing the final push at the top of the mountain. The only enemy I was worried about was the Nightkin with the legendary missile launcher, as I was honestly worried he'd take out the whole team with a single rocket. I'm not sure exactly what happened, as while they were doing damage to it, all of a sudden its health just plummeted to 0. My only guess is that Boone might have got a headshot or a lucky crit, but I didn't expect it to die that fast. Ah well, I'm not complaining. With the missile freak out of the way, we brought Royal along for the ride and then led Tabitha directly into the firing squad where she was swiftly dealt with. With Trejo on our side, all that was left was to make the long walk to Jacobstown to get Lily, and then the squad would truly be at full power. During this journey, I let the group have some fun as they attacked Cook and his men. Seeing how Arcade Ganon was the one to get the killing blow to Cook, I thought it was only fitting that he be given his armour as a sort of trophy for a job well done. I also gave Raoul some BDSM gear. Anyway, moving on. We ran into more Cazadors, but seeing how Veronica was able to handle a few of them earlier by herself, they really did not stand a chance against us. The road to Jacobstown is rather event-free, bar the occasional giant mantis, so I'll skip ahead a bit. The quest to get Lily as a permanent follower also isn't really anything to write home about, as I just have to venture into some cave and find an old chewed up stealth boy. That said, however, this is also where you can find the legendary super sledge, Oh Baby, which I immediately gave to Lily as it's a pretty great melee weapon and certainly better than the bumper sword she's using. With that out of the way, I finish up Lily's quest, engage in the conversation with Veronica for the last time, and now finally have the entire gang together and can now start getting to the actual main quest. Before that, however, I really wanted to see my group fight Volpe's soldiers in Nipton, so off we went. I also made sure to steal a packet of cigarettes off of Oliver Swanwick to ensure that he would swiftly be taken care of by my goons. Now, I had planned to walk up and at least talk to Volpe's first, but I honestly forgot that Boone is immediately hostile to any and all Legion soldiers, so as soon as they were in range, he opened fire and all hell broke loose. For the Legion. All hell broke loose for the Legion. They never stood a chance. Volpe's actually didn't emerge from the house until after all his men were dead, and he was certainly in for a surprise of his life, I'm sure. Once again, just like with Cook, Arcade Gannon got the killing blow on Volpe's, and as such, he reaped the spoils. The others really need to step up their game if they want to win any trophies here. Well, with Nipton now saved, it was time to head off to the strip to begin getting things underway. Seeing how I would need to meet all the factions anyway, I started by heading off to Gomorrah and just letting the gang go to town on anything they see fit. You're all probably beginning to see how this playthrough is going to turn out, only my faction should be left standing by the end. Next on the chopping block was Benny and his henchmen. Nope. Next on the chopping block was Benny and his chairman. Frankly, they put up less of a fight than the Omertas. I'd say Benny's reaction to the situation is also pretty accurate. Benny probably did the most damage to me out of anything I've faced so far, so good for him. That didn't mean a whole lot for him in the grand scheme of things, but hey, A for effort I suppose. Last off for things to murder on the strip, and it was off to the White Gloves. Let's not waste time on this one, they only have sticks to defend themselves for God's sakes. So, as you can probably imagine, they never even came close to being a threat. With everyone on the strip taken care of for the time being, I decided to save myself some trips between Yes Man and Mr. House, and thought I would go deal with some of the other factions now to get them out of the way. That, and I also had a side objective of trying to have my group fight every single other major faction that I could that wouldn't result in any of my companions leaving me. With that in mind, I decided it was time for the Great Khans to come to an end. Boone already has some experience in that regard, so I'm sure it'll go well for him. And go well for him it did. Upon setting foot inside the Longhouse, they were all very swift and accurate with their purification of the Great Khans. Now, amidst the chaos, I'm not entirely sure who killed Papa Khan, but I think I heard Raoul's revolver go off right before he dropped dead, so I gave him the funny hat. It really completes his outfit if you ask me. With the Khans gone, I thought it made the most sense to deal with the Legion for some reason. Plus, I planned on siding with Mr. House, so I would need to go to the bunker anyway. Once at Cottonwood Cove, the fighting started once again, and we cut through them like a hot knife through butter. Veronica even got her first major kill by taking down Aurelius, and as such joined the Fancy Hat gang. I'd be lying if I said this side quest of Fancy Hats wasn't beginning to take more of my interest than the challenge itself. Once at the fort, they all begin decimating their way through the Legion's forces with very little effort as per usual. I was a little worried about going into Caesar's tent, as I know how quick you can get surrounded in there if you aren't careful. Something also started happening with Arcade Gannon's face, as it looked like he was transcending dimensions. Regardless, it was time to take the fight to the man himself, and yeah, it was over before it even had a chance to begin. Lily was the one who got the killing blow as far as I could tell. No funny headwear to add to the collection though, sadly. I was, however, able to loot all of the ballistic fists off of the dead Legion soldiers, and therefore could repair them to give to Veronica and give her a seriously huge upgrade to her power punching potential, to the point where she was now pretty much able to one-shot most human enemies. Below the fort is nothing to write home about, just a few protectrons and turrets between me and the control room, so you know they were dealt with rather quickly. With all that out of the way, there was only two factions left to deal with, the Boomers and the Brotherhood. I've already mentioned that I can't destroy the Brotherhood as that will anger Veronica, and seeing how she is literally the reason I'm able to do this challenge, they're allowed to live to fight another day. The Boomers on the other hand are fair game and ripe for the picking, so that's where we're off to next. I was able to make it through the bombardment with little issue. My squad, however? Yeah, not so much. When I was gracefully teleported to Pearl, I immediately decided to procure some supplies in the name of Mr. House, but Pearl wasn't fond of that idea and tried to attack me. My companions, of course, jumped in to defend me, but upon doing so, we had waged war on the Boomers. I didn't even notice Raquel whenever I left Pearl's house. I just heard her shout something, and by the time I turned around, she was dead. Finally, we found some worthy opponents, as when we entered the main munitions base, we got bombarded with many a grenade. They even managed to knock out everyone in my squad except Raoul. I guess being half dead means you tend to easily shrug off most types of damage. I decided to head outside in hopes to lure them out one by one for Raoul to pick off, but to my surprise, this caused the rest of the team to immediately get back up, and from there, any Boomers who came outside were dealt with viciously. I did go back in and made sure that we got rid of anyone else who managed to survive the initial attack though. Now, all that was left was the Brotherhood. This was just as simple as having Veronica let us into her house, and then I said hello to Ramos and immediately left, as there wasn't really a whole lot else to do here given the situation. Now here's where I had one of the dumbest ideas I think I've ever had in one of these challenges so far. I thought it would be fun to see how well the team would go against all of the Deathclaws in Quarry Junction. More importantly, the Alpha Male and the Mother Deathclaws. The normal Deathclaws weren't much of an issue, even when they did attack in a group, which was quite surprising. The fight with the alpha male very nearly went poorly, as unlike most enemies so far, he actually seemed like he was making a beeline straight for me. Luckily, he got distracted by Arcade, Lily and Veronica though, and the rest of the team were able to put him down just after. I was impressed that he was able to one-shot each of them though, I will admit. Not 20 seconds later, and almost the exact same thing happens again with the Mother Deathclaw, as all three of them once again got knocked down. That said, she didn't put up anywhere near as much of a fight as the alpha male. Well, if there was ever anything to demonstrate how strong my team was, I think this about sums it up pretty well, don't you? The only other encounter at this point that would probably be any real challenge would be the ending fight against Lanius and his men. With that in mind, I went back to Mr. House to continue the main quest. Had to sit through the Securitron part as per usual, and then from there I pursued to disappoint House with my lack of social skills due to the fact that I killed both the Boomers and the Omertas whom he wanted me to strike up alliances with. Now I had planned to continue to work with him, but then I forgot that he wants you to exterminate the Brotherhood, and yeah, I'm not doing that this time, so it's looking like my playthrough where I side with Mr. House will have to wait. I should also point out, since most of my companions are glitched, they were actually able to follow me into the Lucky 38 penthouse. I'm assuming it's because the game isn't technically registering them as companions, but I'm not complaining, as it made the fact that the Securitrons were about to try and kill me a non-issue. When I got down to the basement, I just let Mr. House out and let him rot. Remember, I said I wasn't attacking anyone, I never said anything about causing actions that may or may not lead to the demise of others. With House out of the picture, I spoke to Yes Man the Tops, informed him I had already been to the fort, and met all the necessary tribes, and that I was ready for him in the Lucky 38. From there, I not only installed him into the Lucky 38, but also formed an unholy amalgamation with my companions while he did so. Now it was off to the substation to do the usual. This was also where I put that NCR uniform Boone had been wearing to good use. Yep, nothing out of the ordinary here. With the station powered up and everything else ready to go, it was time to see how well the might of the Legion would fare against me and my cobbled together motley crew. Want to know something great? We actually get a new member to the team, as I nearly forgot that you get a Securiton here to help you out, so that makes 9 of us now, I believe. Getting across the dam and into the offices wasn't difficult at all. What did have me worried was when we had to kill the 2 NCR heavy troops, as it lowered our rep with the NCR and I was terrified that Boom was going to get up and leave, but thanks to us clearing out those Deathclaws earlier, our rep was still just good enough that he only gave us a warning. That's good to know, so he should hopefully be fine with killing Oliver later then. We pretty easily cleaned up all the Legion before the Legate, and as for the fight with him himself, I felt I would just show you the full fight unedited, as I feel like a good number of you are probably really wanting to see that.
Enough words. Die, coward.
And yeah, that's all she wrote. Pretty anticlimactic, honestly, but considering how easily we dealt with all those Deathclaws, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't at all surprised. On the bright side, at least we set him up for a nice free cremation. As for Oliver and his rangers, they barely even had time to figure out what was happening before the majority of them got turned into piles of ash. And with that, the game is over, proving yes, you can indeed beat Fallout New Vegas as part of a group, gang, / squad, whatever. I know you guys like the New Vegas videos a lot, as well as the more unorthodox ideas, so I hope you all enjoyed this challenge, as it's honestly been one of the most fun ones to record, as it was crazy to see just how powerful it was having almost all of the companions at your disposal at one time. Regardless, that's going to be the end of this challenge video. If you enjoyed what you saw, consider giving the video a like, and if you're interested in more challenges in the future, feel free to subscribe, as I try to have one of these videos out every week. My name's Nerbit, stay safe everyone, I'll see you all in the next video.